Hello students, once again a very warm welcome to Misostudy session. So as you know, we have completed your whole chapter, and in today's class I will be talking about CBSE pattern question exercise from this chapter. Now I will be dealing in total 10 questions. So some questions they will be of 1 mark, some questions they will be of 2 marks, and some 3 marks and the 5 marks. So I'll tell you how to attempt such type of questions. So please have a look. Now the first 3 questions, question number 1, 2, 3, they will be of 1 marks. So this type of question, they are very short answer type question. You have to explain in a single line. Either they will be asking for some definition, and for that you have to give examples also, right? Now question number 1 indicate write the name of organism that is referred to as a terror of Bengal. So what is the name of that organism? That is, there are certain kind of exotic species. Exotic species, they are also termed as a non-native species. These are those species which were introduced from outside. In this case, I have one very good example, that is water hyacinth. Now this water hyacinth is a great threat to biodiversity. This was introduced for the you can say for the whole beautifulness it has, and later on it was actually a terror to the indigenous species. The reason was the absence of the natural predator, because we introduced one species, for that the natural predator they were not present. So they flourished at a very fast rate. So the same organism present at the same trophic level, they were affected because of this. So what should be your answer? The water hyacinth. Again a direct question from your NCERT only. Now let's talk about the question number 2. So question number 2 is again of 1 mark. Give one example, each of the fungus reproduced by A, budding, and second is conidia. Now as per the budding is considered, what is the example in it? Yeast, right? And next is a conidia, that is in case of penicillium. In the case of penicillium, right? Is it fine? So this was a question number 2, a direct question, like, and so as I have discussed, so these are the certain asexual method of reproduction, and all these things I have already discussed in session. So was it difficult? Very easy. Now let's move on to the last question of 1 mark. So similar type of question that are actually asked. So if you will start practicing from previous year question, you will not at all find any problem, and if you will face any problem, go to our website, there will be one doubt clearing option, go there and ask us question, right? Like if in case you have any kind of doubt in it. So name an organism where the cell division in itself is a mode of reproduction. Now in this case your answer should be asexual, in this case your answer should be unicellular organism. Let's take one example, that is in case of amoeba. So because it is of a 2 marks, so you have to explain in bit of detail. Let's talk about the amoeba. So question states that actually it shows the process of cell division, which is a mode of reproduction. So in case of amoeba, what happens is, I have this body of amoeba, right? Now first of all, the content which is present in the cell, it will double itself, and later on it will start showing the presence of a furrow which divides the organism into 2 equal halves. Right? So this was the binary fission. Now listen to this very carefully. When we talk about the division in case of a unicellular organism like amoeba, this is actually a cell division. So one cell is there and that cell is divided into 2, and this 2 can further divide into 4. So this is what? This is a cell division. Yes, this is the only method for reproduction in the unisexual organism, where the parent cell doesn't die. Parent cell are immortal, they doesn't die, instead they divide, and what they form is a daughter cell, and each of the daughter cell, they act as a individual organism, right? So this was question number 3. Again, yes, sorry, it was of 1 mark, so we don't have to explain in detail. Now let's move on to the next category question. Now these questions, they are of 2 marks. Again you have to explain a bit of it. Name an alga that reproduce asexually through zoospores. Why these reproductive systems are so called? Now zoospore. Zoospore is seen in case of Chlamydomonas. Remember? Chlamydomonas or green algae. In this case, the zoospores which are present, they are having the flagella within. They are having the flagella within. And because of this flagella, they show the movement. Unlike that of animals, they can move from one place to another because of the presence of a flagella. That's the reason the name is given as a zoospore. Right? This also we have studied in detail in our session. So I'm not going into depth of this topic. Hope keeping this in mind that you all have seen our sessions. Now let's move on to the 5th question, question number 5. Now offspring produced by asexual reproduction are called as clones. Yes, listen to this. Asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, that means in this case there is involvement of a single parent. There is involvement of a single parent, and in this case there is no gamete formation. No gamete formation. When there is a no gamete formation, it is obvious that in this case no fertilization will happen. When there will be no fertilization, no gamete formation, no meiosis, nothing is happening, in that case can I say that in this asexual type of reproduction there will be no recombination. No recombination. In this case the daughter cell will be exact copy of parent. Exact copy of parent. Because it will be produced from a single parent. So that is the reason the name is given as clones. Now what you will explain in this case, you will say that asexual reproduction, it involves only a single parent. In this case there is no gamete formation, there is no fertilization, there is no recombination, and even in this case whatever the daughter cells which are formed, they are exact copy of their parents. That is the reason it is termed as a clone. Right? Is it fine? Is it clear to you? This was question number 5. Let's move on to the question number 6. Unicellular organisms, they are immortal, whereas multicellular organisms, they are not. So can you explain this? Unicellular organism, the division is just like that of a cell division, in which whatever the content which is present in the cell, first of all it double itself. It will get distributed into each of the part of the cell. So what is happening? A parent cell is divided into 2. So there is death of any of the parent? No. There is not at all death. Instead, the parent cell is dividing into 2, and both of them, they are acting as a new organism. So in this case, for example, in case of unicellular organism, there is no death. You should understand this. Whereas in case of a multicellular organism, there are different phases of life. Pre-reproductive phase, then a reproductive phase, after that is a senescence phase. Right? Now, there is a senescence phase, that means after some time the cell dies. Right? So this is clear to you. Now we have 2 points in it. Name the organisms that reproduce through the following reproductive structure. So A is written as conidia and B is written as a zoospores. So zoospores, you know, that is seen in case of Chlamydomonas. And whereas the conidia is where this conidia was found, this was seen in case of penicillium. Right? Now, Mention similarity and the one difference between the two reproductive unit. So one is a conidia and the second is a zoospore. If you look at the conidia, these are the rounded structure which actually originate from a parent penicillium, and they act as a seed. They are dispersed through the medium, they can move to the another and they can form a new colony over there. On the contrary, the zoospore, the name itself indicates these are those structures which can move from one place to another, which are actually having the presence of flagella with them. These are non-motile structure, these are motile structure. This is the difference between both of them, and both of them, they are reproductive units, right? So this was question number 6. Now let's move on to the next question, question number 7. Which of the following statement is true for the yeast? This is not ears, just make this correction, this is yeast. The cell divides by binary fission, one of them develops into a bud. Right or wrong? Absolutely incorrect. The cells divide unequally, the smaller cell develops into bud. Yes, this is absolutely right. So it divides unequally, whereas the smaller cells which are formed, what they form is a bud, right? And these buds, they are rounded structure, they are formed. Now next is buds are there. Next is a cell produce conidia which help in the development of bud. No. So which option is right in this case? I will go for the option 2, right? Now in this question, because it is of a 3 marks, what do you have to do? You have to explain the whole process of reproduction, how we have studied the reproduction in case of yeast. That diagram which I have made in the session, you have to draw that, you have to explain it, and then you have to give a correct option among these, right? Again, let's move on to the next question, question number 8. Coconut palm is monoecious while the date palm is dioecious. Why they are so called? Now I have 2 words. One is termed as monoecious and second this is dioecious. I have 2 words. Now listen to this very carefully. Monoecious, that means these are plant bearing one type of flower. That means either male flowers are present or female flowers are present. Dioecious, you can say these are those that one plant has both the type of flowers. So here both the types of flowers, that means the parent or the plant is having the female structure as well as the male structure, whereas in this case either they will be having female structure or male structure. So this is the difference between monoecious and the dioecious. Coconut palm is the right answer in this case, and second is a date palm. So all these terminologies, they should be clear to you with specific examples, right? Now let's move on to the next question, question number 9. Now this question number 9, as you can see, this is of 5 marks. List the 3 states the annual and the biennial angiosperm have to pass through during their life cycle. There are different phases. The first phase is termed as a juvenile phase. First phase is termed as a juvenile phase. After that, there is a presence of a reproductive phase. Reproductive phase. Right? After that, you can take an example. After that, next phase is a senescent phase. Right? All these we have studied in session, so I am not explaining this right now. Right? So all these phases they are asking. So because it is of 5 marks, so you have to explain each of these phases one by one. Let's look at the second part. List and describe any 2 vegetative propagules in a flowering plants. So these vegetative propagules, they can be stem, they can be roots, they can be the leaves. So any of the two you can explain. For example, if you are explaining roots, you can give an example of a sweet potato. In case these stem, you can give an example of the rhizomes are there. For example, the eyes on the tubers, and bulbs are a very good example of it. The leaves, you can take in one example like a bryophyllum, the Betunia leaves which are there. So all of these, they act as a vegetative propagule. So all these topics I have explained with the help of that PPT, when that the diagrams were there. So each thing which was there in the diagram, that should be clear to you. It is a very easy and a direct question, so hope you all are not finding any kind of problem in it. So these type of topics, they are very important topics, as I have discussed. All these vegetative propagation method, natural one, as well as the artificial method which we have already discussed. That is also a very important topic which can be asked from this topic, this particular chapter, right? Is it clear to you? Now let's move on to the last question of today's session, that is the question number 10. Now, differentiate between an annual and a biennial plant. So annual plant is that plant which has both the phases, the reproductive phase and a vegetative phase within a single year. Whereas a biennial, it takes 2 years for the whole completion of a life cycle. In the first year, it will be having a vegetative phase. In the second year, it will be having a reproductive phase. That means in the second year, it will produce the fruits. So this is a whole thing. So in the case of annual, whatever the vegetative structures are and whatever the reproductive structure are, they will be prepared in a single year. So in this case, in the first year there will be formation of the vegetative structure, in the second year there will be formation of the reproductive structure. In case of annual plants, because it is a very small cycle, so it become very easy to reproduce them, it become very much easy you can say the reproduction rate in this case is very high. For the biennial, their overall the cost of maintenance, that is very high, because it takes 2 years for the completion of their whole cycle, right? So I have a separate example for both of these annual plants. So annual plants, you can take an example like cereal, legume, you can take an example of marigold. Many examples are there, like zerbera is also one example. When we talk about the second, which is a biennial plant, you can take example of a poppy, you can take example of grasses. Likewise, many examples we have already studied in the session. So if you face any kind of problem, first of all watch the sessions carefully and then you can easily contact us. So this is all about the today's session, when we have discussed in total 10 questions from this chapter. Right, all these questions, they are important, as you can see. All the question which is mentioned at the end of each chapter, they are also very important, and do not at all forget to revise the last 10-year questions of your CBSE. So that is also very important, and you will find that in CBSE questions, they are always direct type. It's just that you should have a clear concept knowledge with examples. Do not forget to write examples, and also you should draw the diagram wheresoever it is required. If the question is of 5 marks and the diagram you know about it, do make that diagram. Diagram will give you edge for attaining good marks in it, right? So we'll be winding session here. We'll be discussing a new chapter tomorrow. Till then, take care, keep watching. Thank you so much, students, for watching this.